are listening to the Slash and Cast Podcast Network. Enjoy the show.
Alright folks, Justin here with a quick word before we dive in. In this episode, Daniel and myself chat with veteran voice actor Doug Stone about comedy, impressions, M.A.S.K, Metal Gear, voicing Psycho Mantis, his cat shelter, and much more. Also, it's been brought to my attention that there was a general dip in the audio quality of the episodes that have been released the last few months, and I want to apologize and let everyone know those are being addressed. Hopefully you realized a improvement in quality in our previous episode with Simon Templeman and Michael Bell. We're working on a different recording method, and feedback on that one has been positive. That being said, some of these episodes have been recorded in the older method, and unfortunately there's not much I can do to doctor the quality, but just know going forward things are going to be a lot better. That's enough talking for me, so without further ado, here you go.
Greetings, boils and ghouls. This is your comrade, the Crypt Keeper here, reporting dead from the sanctuary of the strange. Tonight's macabre myth is a fright-filled feature, one overflowing with monsters, madness, and magic.
Take us back in time to when you were a youngster. What sort of things were you into? Were you reading comics, building forts? What's the scoop there?
Oh, yeah, all the above. I was born in Canada, and building forts. When I was about 11, my parents moved to a house that I really liked because behind us was woods. It was just woods. It was acres and acres of land owned by some people who had a cemetery that was way far away, and they bought all the land around it. So me and my buddies would hop the fence in my backyard, go out there. And, yeah, we dug forts, underground forts, and built forts, and had my first cigarette there, like, oh man, don't tell my parents, hide the cigarette. And, sat there with my buddy and discussed life and music and everything else, all that stuff. And then being Canadian, also hockey would be included, ball hockey. And all winter long, we lived on a street that wasn't a main street. So my street was the one where the kids would all get you get a tennis ball and set up nets or fake nets. And, that's how you'd spend your Saturday afternoon playing hockey with your buddies and stuff. Yeah, forts and of course, yeah, comic books. My era, that's, the Donald Duck and the Mickey Mouse, all the Disney stuff, and Popeye and all.
What was your favorite?
Stuff. I don't know if I had it different, it would change year to year.
I understand completely.
I'm the kind of kid who would fixate on things. Like when I got into really reading books and I discovered Sherlock Holmes books.
Oh, yeah.
I read every Sherlock Holmes book. I'd read one, go to the library, get until I'd read every one I could find. Then I found James Bond books. The James Bond stuff. I think maybe one film was up, but I found the book. I read every James Bond book. So I would find one thing and then just go through all of it till it was done, then find the next thing to get fixated on. So comics are probably the same, where I probably read tons of Superman, then went, no, Green Lantern. Yeah, Green Lantern.
Yes.
60 of those, Wonder Woman. Oh, yeah. Just one's enough. I could just stare at the picture because I'm a pubescent boy. So it was like that, and listened to a lot of cartoons on TV and all the standard stuff. And the first time I saw a cartoon where I got old enough to say, I'm going to look at the credits at the end, and saw a Warner Brothers cartoon, and I think they expressed it as vocal characterizations by Mel Blanc. And I went, wait a minute. Every voice I heard?
One guy.
That was one guy? That was this guy named, who's Mel Blanc? So although I had no aspirations to be in voiceover, I was very aware of who Mel Blanc was when I was young, because that stuck with me. That one guy was doing all those voices really stuck with me a lot. And it wasn't until I got older and learned a little bit about him that he'd been a musician and, a little bit about his history. Not online because that didn't exist at the time, but in the library and other sources. It was rather typical in that the only showbiz sort of connection, well, two maybe. My dad was a radio announcer. That didn't scare me. The idea of somebody being in the entertainment business was what I lived with, and he did PR for this very large station. So he met a lot of celebrities in who would come up from Hollywood to Toronto. And also, I had a great interest in acting. I was writing funny stories in school and entertaining kids. And I learned, even though I was this little kid who wasn't the best in sports, much as I liked it, I could make people laugh. And that's a superpower. Yeah. When you're in grade 1 or 2, the bullies won't necessarily pick on you so much. Oh, no, that's a kid who makes us laugh. He's okay. And girls looked at you and you could make girls laugh in grade 3 or 4. Man, that's a superpower. That sort of led into acting in school plays. And then I went to a camp that specialized in the arts because my parents saw I had that interest. And I went from supporting little roles to lead roles in some of these plays and began to think, hey, man, maybe that's the life for me, acting. So that was always there. But of course, voiceover was really kind of non-existent except in Hollywood for a kid growing up in Toronto, Canada.
How'd that happen?
The voiceover was hapstance. It was luck, really. I'd left school at 16 and I had a very adventurous life. I was a long-haired hippie making sandcast candles. I hitchhiked across the U.S. and Canada, went to India and meditated. All the stuff that 60s kids did, I did them all. There's lots of adventures. And then when I got, and I was still doing theater once in a while, but again, no voiceover. I was doing a straight job. I had gotten married and adopted a child, so I felt like I needed a day gig to bring in money for family and everything. And at the day gig in my 20s, they said, we need somebody to do scratch tracks. In other words, rough tracks that won't be aired, but they're for the audience who may not understand it. Before you get your big celebrity in to do a commercial, you'll get some other guy to come in and read the commercial 4 or 5 times to make sure it times out right. And for them to listen to and say, let's change this word, change that. So when the celebrity comes in, they don't mess around. Everything's all in place. So they said, do you want to do that? We'll give you $50. Oh, wow. Well,
Okay.
actually, I auditioned for it, as did a bunch of the people. They thought that'd be fun. And I got the gig. And after a while, the guy at this was a very large company and they had a studio in it. And he started to bring me in to do a lot of stuff. And I had acting experience and I had a good sense of timing. I worked in the computer industry at that point. I had gotten into that. So I had an interior clock, so I could bring it in at 30 seconds. And, if it's 28 and you needed a 30, I could lengthen it. I could shorten it with the internal clock. Anyway, eventually he started to get me more money. And I was doing theater. And I said to him, do you think I could actually make money doing commercials on the outside world? And he said, yeah, I think you're good enough. And I thought, wow, I don't care if I go hungry. If I can just pay the rent, maybe I could fund my theater career and potentially an on-camera career in Toronto by doing some voiceover work on the side and get paid for it, because you're not going to get paid much for theater, even if you go equity. So I bravely quit my job, made a demo tape, I think I got a client first, sending this very amateur demo tape out, got a client, and I was doing all the commercials for a mall. They had the contract. So every store that had commercials, I'd be Santa Claus at Christmas, I'd be this, I'd be that. For about a year and a half, I was getting schooled in front of a microphone while I got paid, and I was learning how to, where to go, how do you place, where do you go off axis to do this, and, how do you yell but not get too much wind or too much, all the stuff that's part of the technical aspect. I was kind of getting paid to do, still as a sideline. So I'm in Toronto. I'm doing more and more theater. I have my own theater group, my own improv comedy group, and we're doing dinner theater. I'm starting to get TV roles made for, in those days it was called made for video, straight to video TV roles. And a cinematographer on this film I did said, "Who's your agent?" And I didn't have a good agent. I was still new in the business, relatively 2 years or so in. And he said, "Go to so-and-so agency, tell him I sent you. You're a good actor. You should be with a better agent." On his word, they signed me, bless his heart. And I did get to thank him about 2 years later to take him out for dinner. They signed me, and coincidentally, a French company, Canadian company, and American company were putting together a cartoon series called M.A.S.K, Mobile Armored Strike Command. In 1984, they were putting this together, and they said, "Well, we want to do it under Canadian union rules, so we want Canadian actors." They auditioned Canadian actors in LA, but couldn't find their lead, and about 3 or 4 of the other roles they just couldn't get. They said, "Let's go to Canada." And they only went to about 2 agencies up there. And this one that I just signed with was one of them. So I got to audition for that. They liked me, and then, but they weren't sure. They hadn't met me. They did, my background. I didn't have a lot of VO work. So they auditioned me over and over and over again, long distance, before they gave me the role. I flew down to LA, did the series. Those 2 or 3 roles expanded into 8 roles. It became 75 episodes. And the people here encouraged me to stay. The company that was doing it, plus the studio, at that time called B&B Studio, the owner who's passed now, said, "Yeah, you're good enough to work in LA." And I thought, I never had dreamt that, or that wasn't the aspiration. I just didn't think that was possible, but I'll take that shot. So I used the money I made from the cartoon series to fund myself to start a career down here. And fortunately, it's worked out.
Yeah, I mean, you jumped over quite a few because, I mean, dude, you went back to the forest. Yeah, you are already just royalty as far as my little brother's concerned. He grew up watching that movie. But yeah, you jumped in some mass. So is that where you consider like your first pivotal, like, I made it?
Oh, I had it was, I think we all did. I mean, we were all thrilled with getting on a cartoon series, and the fact that we got picked up, and, I think we did 65. Then we're off for a bit and came back and did 10. So it was great windfall for all of us, and really exciting to learn as we went and to bring out skills that I hadn't had a chance to really. I've always done accents for fun. To me, that's like music. I can't sing. I can't play an instrument much as I try. Some people can just pick up a guitar and hear a song and play it. But if I hear your accent within a couple of minutes, I can do it probably back to you pretty good, and with some practice, I'm not bad at all, I can do it. This gave me a chance to use all those skills and hone them. I thought I'd made it as far as to a certain level, but I knew I hadn't made it in LA. I hadn't made it in the big picture. I wasn't regularly working. I didn't have an agent yet, et cetera, et cetera. But it was a huge step. It got me here. It got me some recognition from some industry people who were encouraging me, and that gave me confidence, because I would have been very nervous just coming down here on my own. Right. But the fact that they said, "Hey, yeah, you're good enough to work here. You should, look for an agent, da-da-da-da-da. Yeah, we'll hire you again," and, et cetera, et cetera. It was a very big deal in my life. Yeah.
So, I mean, you were probably, now, was it all recording these shows? Because, I mean, I was born in 1980, so I was your target demographic.
Yeah.
That, when the reason they were so strict doing these things and like the product marketing and stuff is because you were supposed to target me. So, yeah, I have a vested emotional interest in these things.
we had your picture up in front of the microphone.
I bet you did. Thank you.
Newborn to 4 years old. I
had I had a couple of the M.A.S.K toys and stuff. Were you recording with people, or was it just like you would go into an isolation booth, do your lines, and then, F off, wait until the next actor comes in?
It was all the cast. Usually it differs depending on what you're doing. When you're doing original animation, as we were, you're usually, pandemic aside, but usually you're in the room with the other actors, and it's done like a radio play. Yeah, it's a lot more fun when you can play off the other actors and just joke around and have fun on breaks and get to know the other actors and stuff. It's a lot of fun. It doesn't happen for anime work and dubbing. Then you go in and you're in an ISO booth. Generally, for original animation, my experiences with it over the years, they bring in the whole cast. You do a full rehearsal of the script, and there might be a few tweaks and rewrites. Particularly if it's a new series, then the writers might be there on the first few episodes to tweak things, get the characters strengthened up. They'll be listening to what you're doing with the characters, and then may give them little ideas of, since he does this, let's start to do this with that character, So everybody's learning from each other. And you're learning and playing off just like you would in a play on stage. You're learning how the other characters are playing their roles, and that might change how you're going to play off them. So I love it. It's my favorite way of recording, but it's time consuming. It's not like going in for an hour and you can do your whole script for an anime. You might even do it in half an hour. It may take a few hours, but in this case, you may rehearse for 2 hours and then record the show for 2 hours.
So, Doug, when you were on stage, what was your favorite role to play? Did you have any?
Well, I really liked improv comedy. I love doing drama. And on stage, your face on stage isn't as important as it is on camera, I learned. So I started off doing drama primarily on stage. Then I discovered improvisational comedy, and it turned out I had a bent for it. And I ended up studying at Second City in Toronto. And as I say, forming my own group. I worked, you know who the Kids in the Hall are?
Yeah.
Yeah, the kids were around the same time as me. We were all starting out together. They were 10 years younger than me, but we were all starting something called theater sports in Toronto at the same time. So I knew all those guys.
Gotcha.
In fact, Scott was in one of my groups for a short period of time before he joined the kids, Scott Thompson.
Wow.
So it was around that era. So that was a lot of fun. But when I went to do on camera, this face, if you can see it, does not read funny. It reads mean. It reads serious. So most of the roles I got on camera, I'm a small guy, but I'd be the small guy with a gun. People would go, just don't screw it, like a Joe Pesci. You know, don't fucking mess with that guy because he'll rip your face off. I do a few impressions, but not too many. But Pesci, I do. I've actually doubled for his voice in a film he did. A lot of film actors. I also have done a lot of work in LA doing looping. Providing voices for TV shows and films. And once in a while you do double, you voice match some of the actors who either hate going in to redo their lines, I know, Kitty, or they're on other films and just can't do it. They're on location, and it turns out a helicopter went by when they said a certain line and they have to redo it. So voice actors will come in and voice match them. The film I did with Pesci was one of his failures. I forget what it was called. It was a comedy where he was fishing.
Gone fishing with Danny Glover.
With Danny Glover, and my buddy doubled for Danny Glover. I'd forgotten I'd done it. And then my buddy reminded me about it, and I'd completely forgotten. They were auditioning for somebody to do more of the Pesci stuff, but I was on a different looping job. And they said, we want you to audition. I couldn't get there because I had another union job, because that would have led to 2 or 3 more Pesci films, maybe more successful. I've done him. I doubled, not really doubling, but I did a cartoon series for a Lego cartoon series where they wanted the mayor to sound like Danny DeVito because he was kind of a con man. He was bigger. Danny DeVito. So I was the mayor. And my daughter was very, very important to me. Yes. So I cheated just a little bit to make her succeed.
So Doug, you mentioned you had a good internal clock because you worked with computers. Did that internal clock help you a lot when you were dubbing for anime? Because I've heard a lot of voice actors say that the timing is the main thing with that.
Absolutely. It led me to direct, though it's not on my IMDb, and not all my credits are on the IMDb, which is usually where people look, and I've never updated, but I directed a lot, and I also wrote a lot of adaptations, which were to timing. When I first started in the business, dubbing became a mainstay as I got established. So yeah, that internal clock is and it's really important because even at my slightly advanced age, I'll be dubbing with somebody from home during the pandemic. A director I've never worked with, maybe they're 25 or something, and they say, we're giving you this guy Doug Stone, and they go, oh, an older guy, okay. And I go to do the line, and they say, well, it's just a hair too long, and I nail it, and they go, oh, you got it. Yeah, well, I put a little hitch here, and they didn't mark it, but there's a pause there. And it's kind of fun for me because they go, oh, you're good at this. Yeah, I hope so. At this point, I better be. But the clock, thank goodness, I'm getting old and the body's aging, but the clock is still working, the internal clock. So it's a big help in dubbing, yeah.
Your resume with all the anime on there, apparently it has served you well over the decades of some of your credits list. So yeah, I bet that right there is probably just one of, if not the best asset you bring.
Well, it's a combination of factors. When we first started dubbing, there was a lot of really good actors, really good voice actors who could change their voices and had a great range or whatever, and they wouldn't dub because the timing thing drove them crazy. And at that time when we started, we didn't have Pro Tools. We didn't have a machine that would go beep, 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 and then you start. And you couldn't just redo it. It was on, or they couldn't move it rather, the way they can move. They might say, oh, the timing is great, but it started that much too late. We'll just shift it over. We were working on tape. So you just had to look at the time codes to the 30th of a second and figure out when to start, where you hit just when the mouth opened. So a lot of really good voice actors. Now the field's got everybody in it. Every actor wants to be in anime. But in the 80s, late 80s, mid 80s, a lot of people didn't want to do it because that timing aspect drove them crazy.
Yeah, you're right. You said it. You said it. I mean, putting it on the tape. So yeah, children out there listening to this, little kiddies, used to back in the old days, after we carved it into stone, they came out with tape and we were able to put it to tape. But still, one shot and that's it. Until they came out with where you could actually do an overdub if you were lucky to have that equipment.
Yeah. I can remember taking breaks and with the engineer where you had to go change the reels. You might walk down there with him and help him change the reels where you were chatting and come back and the actors got to have a nice coffee break or whatever.
Yeah. That or then if you smoke a cigarette and then, of course, voice actors smoking a cigarette, then they go back, all of a sudden their voice is deeper.
Yeah.
There is cloud. It's like, no, wait. Oh yeah.
Well, I have to admit, I was a smoker when I started. I quit early and I quit in 1980, January 4th, 1989 is the last time I've even touched a cigarette. Your physical stance. I like to stand when I work. I find it opens my instrument more. Some actors like to sit, but if you taped me doing a character sitting yesterday and then today you ask me to stand, it's going to sound a little different.
Right. It's going to be different. Yeah.
Because my chest is going to open in a different way. And even if I'm attempting to use the same timbre and the same everything, it may alter slightly. So yeah, everything can change. When they play you back, and sometimes you forget too, before I start a continuing character, I always ask them, give me a playback. Don't trust my memory.
Right.
Even if you're saying, oh, Doug, you were using your regular voice, I want to hear what my regular voice sounded like that day. I might listen to it and go, oh, it's my regular voice, but actually I detect a little bit more husk than I usually have. So I must have had something going on. So let me give you that voice with just a little bit more husk than I would usually have in it because I apparently had it that day when I was first recording. So many things could have an effect. The M.A.S.K cartoon, people ask me, well, how did you do 8 characters talking to each other? Each one stood differently. When I was standing at the mic, each one had a different physical stance to help me change not just my placement in my mouth, loudness and everything else, but my chest cavity and my body. All those things have an effect on how that voice is going to come out. And you can differ it, even if there are 2 characters placed in kind of a similar place. The more you can change your body to affect that, the more differentiation you can get.
And 8 characters. Holy crap.
Yeah, I did 8. I think the most I've ever done, it was a one-time project, was 10. But they were, it was some special. And not long after I got here, paid really well. I thought everything's going to be roses. Of course, it was like the only time I got that good. But they just handed me thousands of dollars to do this thing. But they were really wild characters. I mean, they weren't human necessarily. So you could really go all over the place for that. But 8 human characters is challenging, yeah. Where they've got to sound real. They're not from outer space.
So when you're doing those 8 characters at once, are you recording all the voice lines from maybe one character, then switching to another, or is it dialogue style where you're just constantly shifting and going back from one to the other?
You can do either way you like. I like the challenge of going one to the other, as long as they understand there's going to be a beat or 2 more than if I'm doing 2 lines in a row. I'm just going to give them a little beat, but I need to change it a little bit. But I like the challenge, and the engineers love it. The mixers love it because they go, wow, that's great. They don't have to pull.
Right. We don't have to cut the audio or splice or anything.
I just had to do that. We'll get to it at some point, I guess, but I do charitable work for this charity, Kitty Bungalow. And I just recorded with the wonderful voice actress, Carrie Walgren, was doing some recording for me for something for our next charity event. And she sent me all her lines. And there I was on my Pro Tools, putting them in with my lines, doing and cutting, and I'm going, man, I don't want to be an engineer for a living. This is tough. Trying to put everything snapped together with no sound in between, make it sound conversational. There's only that much space between the lines. Oh, wow. That's why I don't do, I did audiobooks for a little while and they said, don't bother editing. And then, you send them the stuff, and you may start a sentence 3 times because you stumbled. They went, oh, actually, that's driving us crazy. Could you just, give it an edit to just what the keepers are? We're not saying edit everything where it's just the right space, but just, get rid of the keepers. Don't worry about Oh, man, that's taken me as long as it is to, no, forget it.
So how you like the audiobook stuff?
Put it this way. I enjoyed doing all the different characters. Do I have any audiobooks or listen to audiobooks? No.
There you go.
Take all that information and do with it as you will.
That's a good enough answer.
I also don't own a television set, so take that for
Bravo.
what
Bravo. Hey, that's the way to go.
hippie days, man. After I left home, I couldn't afford a TV. I've been working since I was 16. I couldn't afford a TV set, so I went a lot of years without one. And then I got married. My wife had, TV set, and went, oh wow. So I'm watching this thing, Canned Laughter. I don't know, but we separate for a while, no TV set. We get back together, TV set. We get divorced, no TV set. Yeah, I like it better this way. So no TV set.
You hear that, kids? And he's still alive. You can survive.
It's amazing. You can survive without canned laughter. It's incredible. You kind of figure out yourself what's funny and isn't funny.
Speaking of canned laughter and the cybernetic elephant in the room, how did you get into Metal Gear? Because this is one of my favorite franchises, video games, stories. Everyone's like Ninja Gaiden, Metal Gear, Doom, Galaga. I mean, just name the list, but it's always up there at the top. How did you get into Metal Gear?
It's not really a fascinating story. It was just
they never are, but
yeah, sorry, just another audition. It was just another audition that crossed my desk, and I don't remember much about it, how I got the
really
audition, or who gave it. Well, I've done a lot of work, man.
I understand this.
40 years in the business and voiceover since 85. So 37 years of voiceover. So I don't know. It was just one more audition. You get tons, or not as many anymore, but you get tons every week. So just an audition that came in. I do remember a little bit that the character description was interesting in that they didn't say what country he was from, but they wanted this sort of a European da-da-da-da-da. And I thought, well, I want to do something that nobody else does, which is what you always want to do in an audition. For better, I think, at least, for better or for worse, don't sound like everybody else.
Right.
And they may say, oh, that's terrible or whatever. But if they like it, it's not going to be you against so-and-so, so-and-so. They're just going to go, ooh, he did something wild and out there. I like that. Mm-hmm. So I think take those chances if you can get them to get off the map. So I made him partly German, partly Russian. I took a couple of accents and combined them into something that I thought, let me make him really unique where we don't know where he's from. Because as a character himself, from the writing that I saw, we don't really know.
Right.
So, okay, I'll do that. And I got lucky where they went, oh, that's weird. Nobody else did that. That's interesting. So I got a call back to do it again. Did so, got a little bit of direction on it, and then got the gig and went in. And that was one where I did record alone. The first one, they didn't have a big budget. You're going to hear a little bit of whistle. I'm missing a tooth. I'm going in for an implant. So there's a little bit of whistle in my speech pattern. I notice it all the time because it drives me crazy, the sibilants. It was in a house where they had built actually a studio in a house. It's kind of funky. And the first one that were recorded, actually the engineers and the director were in the same room as me in the screen, which is not usually what happens. Usually there's a separation of soundproof glass. But I do recall that. And we recorded in there. And I did a Psycho Mantis and a few minor characters. And then the next time, I guess the game really succeeded. So the next time we went to a real studio and we were in a real booth and et cetera, et cetera. And again, I recorded alone with the director doing Psycho. I remember a bit about the session, but not a great deal. It was challenging and a lot of energy.
I was going to ask, so you didn't have a TV. So were you familiar with video games at all? I mean, surely you played Donkey Kong or Galaga or something at some point, right?
I played the games that you would play in a bar or a restaurant, the
pinball machines. So
yeah, well, I loved pinball growing up. And to me, that was the natural progression. So I was playing, I can't remember what they're called, but I can remember playing all those, ding, 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 ding.
Yeah.
Not on computers.
So so that's what I'm getting there. The dialogues, the thing about the Psycho Mantis aspect is that really just blew people's mind. No other game had done this. The Metal Gear, there was a whole lot of things that game did that had never been done before. And one of these is breaking the fourth wall. Yeah. And it's like, I was one of those kids, like my mind was blown because I had Castlevania on my memory card. I was big, of course, I'm a video gamer anyway, but as a kid, so when did Metal Gear come out? Solid was like 97, I think. So I had
97, 8, somewhere.
So
there.
I had a couple of Konami games on my memory card at the time that I'm playing it. And sure enough, whenever you are telling me to, I will read your mind, I'm like, okay, this will be fun. Yeah. What kind of hokey BS is this? Like set the controller down. It's like, Okay, I'm going to set the controller down. What? It's like, I'm controlling it with my mind. And I was like, oh my God. And he's like, you don't believe me? Let me see. You like Castlevania. And it's so funny how ignorant I was. But we all were. It's just the tricks that it pulled, the simple stuff to not even know it. Did you have any idea back then? It's like how crazy this was or what it might become? Or was it just like, wow, this is weird. I'm getting paid though. This is cool.
More the latter. I mean, I knew enough about the game world or about games, and they told me, we're going to make the thing move, and I went, oh wow, cool, because so I had the information that a lot of what I was going to be doing hadn't been done before, and breaking the wall, etc. I had been voicing on games. I was voicing on games. I can probably go grab some that were on disc that you take and load into your computer and whatever.
Oh, yeah.
So I was there at the very beginning of some of the gaming stuff doing voice work. So I knew a little bit about that kind of stuff. Though at home, I had a $6 million a man pinball machine that I played, that I bought for myself. But I knew enough. So I knew, oh, this is really cool. But you have no idea what's going to succeed and not succeed.
Right.
And I think a very foolish thing I learned in the business is to ever attach yourself and think, oh, I hope this makes it big. I hope this is done, because you're going to get disappointed time and time again. The best thing is to go in, do the work, do your very best, marry yourself to the process. I want to come in and do the best job I can do. Oh, that felt good. Me and the director really had something good going. I feel like I really delivered a performance. Great. I go home and I feel good. Now I wipe the slate clean and I go on to whatever I'm doing tomorrow. I don't track, did the game sell? How many people are watching that video? Is that anime work? I don't want to get involved in that kind of stuff and potentially get disappointed that something I liked didn't do well or whatever. Just for me, it's about the work. So I did that job, thought this was a lot of fun. That was a really different thing. Cool, great. I heard a little bit of stuff at the time that Metal Gear is becoming super popular. And I thought, oh, great, good. Gaming world likes it. But I really had no idea until I went to a convention.
I was fixing to ask, do you know now?
Oh, I know now, because I got my butt kicked. I went to a M.A.S.K convention. They had a banner up, M.A.S.K, Doug Stone, da-da-da. And I'm sitting there and I'm signing some M.A.S.K stuff. And then some kids started to come up to me with controllers and other stuff saying, would you sign this, but sign it as Psycho Mantis? And I looked at the controller and I forgot. I went, sure, but why are you giving me a computer controller? They went, you don't know? Psycho Mantis. I went, oh, that's right. He did. Yeah. Is that a big thing?
Yeah.
Yeah. I got verbally spanked. You don't know? So I went home and looked it up in the computer and went, top 10 villains on all these different lists online from, this is 15 years later, top 10 video villains of all time. Yeah. Psycho Mantis. Psycho Mantis. He's in the top 10, number 4, number 5, number 6. And that's when I realized, oh man, I got to go back and re-educate myself on this and what that was about, because I had no idea it had culturally caught on. And did you know Psycho Mantis did commercials a few years ago?
No,
I didn't know that.
You can find them on YouTube. That was another big wake-up call. I get an email. Somebody gets hold of my personal email address, says, and I thought it was scammers. They say, we're with a advertising company in Florida, and we're doing car commercials, and we'd like to get Psycho Mantis, your character, to do some. So I write back and say, yeah, well, that's pretty funny. Psycho Mantis doing car commercials. Yeah, well, clever. How did you get my email address? No, we're a real company. Here's our link. And I look, and they're a real company. And I think, well, they don't get it. I say, you have to have permission from they said, we've actually already done, and they named a few other iconic cartoons. They said, we've already done those ones. And yes, we've been in touch and we have permission. It's just whether you want to or not. I went, oh, I'm sorry. I'm embarrassed. I just didn't think it was real. Like, how can you get a villain? Why would you want a villain associated with a car commercial? Well, they took the portion, and I did it. You can find them on YouTube. If you look up Psycho Mantis car commercials, I think you can find it. And it's the portion where I say, I can read your mind. I redo it, but I can read your mind. You want a Ford Escort with a so-and-so, so-and-so.
Nice.
What you're dreaming of driving is a da-da-da-da-da. I know because I can read your mind. And,
oh, God.
And they use that footage of me on the desk, etc., from Psycho Mantis. And I did about 4 or 5 car commercials. And it was so cool, paid so well that I tithed 10% of it, my profits, over to the Kitty Bungalow shelter where I volunteer, just because it was this windfall and so much fun to do. turned out they were fans at the agency. So they were really easy to work with, really nice people. And we knocked out each commercial really quickly. So yeah, there you go. You never know what's going to live on.
That's it. Because I mean, this up to Metal Gear 5, you were still being referenced in those games. There's actually a Mantis-like character. Actually, it is Mantis that's in Metal Gear 5. So I mean,
the younger one.
Yeah, just so what you may think was just some goofy, oddball, stupid 2 pages of lines that you have to do in an isolation booth. You never know. Because, not only did you impact me when I was 17, and to this day, I was laughing with Justin before we got on, I actually played through the series again over the Thanksgiving break. And so, I mean, you never know, because not only did it impact me, but you have affected my little brother and my son, who has just turned 17, and, he knows full well about Metal Gear and stuff too. So, you got to take that. It's just one of those, I'm so glad that a lot of the voice actors we meet and stuff, some of them are pretty flippant with the characters, and that's fine. Just, people, like I said, never meet your heroes, but it's nice to see that some people take it and at least keep it separated and, take at least a modicum of care with it.
Once I find, if it's important to people, I mean, I'm being very glib with you and everything else, but the truth is, when I meet people and they say, oh, I love this and love this, I didn't know how to react, and I sort of apologized and say, oh, well, I didn't do that good a job. And I thought, Doug, that's not honoring them. That's not this. Just shut your mouth and say, thank you. I'm glad it meant something to you. Thank you. Because that's what you're feeling, but it's hard to, I had to learn, shut up and just acknowledge that this was something important to them, and take that home with you and go, wow, isn't that cool? I got to do something that was meaningful to somebody. And it's why I've always, and I believed it even before that started to happen, that you must honor the work. You must, I used to make furniture for a living. I worked in warehouses, and then I won an award for being the best worker in the warehouse. Or whatever you do, my dad taught me this. And amongst the things that he taught me that I kind of shoved aside, 2 really good ones were treat the guy who cleans up at the factory with the same respect as the president, because he's there working to support his family too. Treat everybody with proper respect, and always honor the job you're doing with your best effort, so that at night you can go to sleep proud and say, well, I don't know what it was, but I did my best. So I have nothing to feel bad about.
That's right.
Have it clear. So that's how I approach the voiceover stuff. So there's been a lot of stuff I've done that just, I did it and it disappeared and went into the ether. But when I was in that booth, I did the best I could. I gave it every bit of energy I had that day to try to honor what the director asked for and whatever else, so that I'd feel good about my work when it was done.
Sometimes, there's a barometer for people my age. There's a litmus test I give to people, like a playground test. Is, where did you ever end up in conversation in the playground? It was like when I was in elementary school, Van Damme, Steven Seagal, of course, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Michael Dudikoff. If you were in that playground conversation ring, you were somebody. Now, of course, Metal Gear came a little later. But the same thing still applies to the fact that you pop up in these nerd discussions and nerd conversations. It's hearing you talk about, the way, because I can hear it in your voice, you light up, when people come and talk about that. We had the same thing with Robin Shou. He played Liu Kang in the Mortal Kombat movies. And it was just, you could see tears in his eye. And then in our eyes, whenever we're like, this Liu Kang, he had no idea how, eventually he did, but for the longest time, he had no idea just how freaking cool that he is, or was even back then. It still is now, like this shining beacon of positivity. But that's just to make sure you understand just how important you were.
Let me show you
the playground talk some days. So you were very pivotal, even if it was a bad guy. A good guy is only as good as the bad guy makes it.
Right.
So, good guys are fun. I'll tell you, back in Canada, when I was first starting voiceover, this was one of the early jobs I had, was being the barker. I don't know if it's shining.
Yeah, it looks good.
I called it a record album, kids. And they were giving it out free at the circus. And I was the barker. If you came to the circus and bought tickets for your family, you got one of these. Now, I got paid, of course, to Trivia Trek. Ages 4 to 9. When I did this, I got high. On the idea of it. And I came home and told, I think I was married at the time, I told my wife, I said, I'm going to be part of kids' magic. The kids stuff that I grew up listening to and watching on TV, like Mel Blanc, that was magic, because you weren't even thinking it's a voiceover. You're just thinking it's, Bugs Bunny's talking to me and he's funny and I'm laughing and this is great, man. And then, like you say, you talk to your friends at the schoolyard and say, did you say Bugs Bunny? When he said, it's your magic world of childhood. And I got to be in that magic world. So from the very first time I got to do children's entertainment, I got
so fun.
Very excited about it. Children's entertainment is one of my most fun things. When I first got here and I wasn't working a lot in LA, I was just starting out. I was reading books at public school, after school program for kids who didn't have a family to go home to. Their parents were both working. They'd be at school playing. They thought it would be good for literacy. And the Screen Actors Guild funded this or started this program. They get actors to come to schools and read to the kids and encourage them to read books. So I'm very much invested in that whole idea of, you look at those kids when you're reading to them and their eyes, they're transported into whatever world you're creating. And it's what, when I'm at Kitty Bungalow at my shelter that I work with, I like feeding the baby kittens. I like bottle feeding baby kittens, man. They fit in the palm of your hand and you're giving them life. So there's to me, there's magic in all of that. That really makes life worthwhile when you can be part of that kind of magic. So voiceover work, sometimes I'm doing a commercial for a healthcare company and whatever. So it ain't magic, but I'm still going to give it everything I can. If I believe in that product, I want my guy to tell him, you really need to look into this because this could be important for you. It really helps if you're in it. You don't just lend your voice to it, but that you commit to it. It's like acting on stage, which was my background. Commit to that character, commit to the words, commit to what you're doing. And I feel like you walk out feeling better about the job you did. And I think you succeed more. And I think it has a stronger effect on the listeners. I was once a character, it's called, what's it called? A film, looking for it up on my wall. The House of Magic, Thunder in the House of Magic. I played a Bostonian magician who was an old retired magician, and he entertained children at a hospital, and he made magical characters. Whatever. I loved him so much. I would almost be in tears when I was voicing him because all I could tell I would picture a room full of children in front of me, and that I was being this character for them, and that helped infuse love in his voice. The feedback I've gotten from people, like the lady who hired me, uses that as part of her classes, the performance as part of her classes, to try to tell her students, this is what you have to put into it, and it'll come through the voice, whatever it is. Or if you're Psychomantis, I was badass that day, dude. Put that microphone, that's what I put. I was just badass. Yeah. And, you got to go into the character and let him take you or her take you where they need to take you for you to get that to infuse into the voice.
I was going to ask, on the opposite end of the kid spectrum, when you're a bad guy, do you picture slaughtering a whole room full of people in your head? Yeah, it's bad. But I did it on camera. I was a badass on camera. And we all have lightness and darkness in us. It just, as they say, it depends which wolf you feed. So in my life, I want to feed the lightness, but we all have that other side we can go to. And as an actor, you have to be able to find that dark side. Just don't feed it when you're off the microphone or away from the camera. But you have to be able to find it for your performances, certainly.
So it looks like you've been staying busy with your voice. Good God in heaven, man. You just decades spanning, but even now it looks just like recently you've still been able to keep busy with your voice work. So, do you actively have to search stuff out, or are you at the point now where they just come across your desk? You're like, okay, I'll do this. Yeah, I'll do this. Yeah, okay.
I operate without an agent for a number of years now. I'm fortunate enough. There was a time where I was working 6 jobs a week and directing at night. I barely slept in the late 80s through the 90s into the 2000s because I had a loop group of my own providing voices for TV shows and films. I did all the Hercules and Xena TV shows in the 90s.
Nice.
Wow. That was my voiceover group did all the voices that weren't the principals. So we were every monster, every villager, everything else. So I've been, stuff that doesn't show on the IMDb. I've done over 1,000 TV shows and film gigs where I was providing voices. So now I'm like I call it semi-retired, meaning working 2 or 3 times a week only. And I'm fortunate enough where it generally just crosses my desk where emails come in. Like this morning, there was an email came in and said, you've been cast in this. If you're interested in doing so-and-so, let us know about your availability, et cetera. And I go, yeah, great. Sounds good. I'm in. So sometimes I get cast, sometimes I audition, but I've been fortunate enough where I haven't had to actively go out and beat the bushes. They don't cast me as 20-year-olds anymore, right. But I'm fortunate enough when they want people 45, 50 and up that there's enough people that think of me where, I still get the roles doing that stuff. Usually more, not so much lead characters anymore. Though, what was I just looking at? There's one here that was Super Crooks. Mm-hmm. We were all leads. So it was about cast of about 10 or 12 main characters. And I was playing Carmine. Voicing Carmine, who was an older, semi-retired criminal who was part of the Super Crooks gang. So all the other actors were, actors in their 20s to 40s primarily. Though my buddy Bo Billingsley was also in it. He's around my age, but generally they were younger actors. Everybody's grandpa, whether he's a mean guy or a nice guy, or fathers or judges, or, I tend to get more authoritative older characters now, but that's fine. I already played heroes, so that's okay.
I'm fascinated by, like I said, just doing audio drama and stuff. I've always liked to be involved in the voice work, or even just to do the editing of stuff like that. Hearing you, some people even say just rambling on, and it's just like, no, I'm just sitting there listening. It's incredible.
If you're in it long enough and you build up enough of a resume, and it's relationships, I've worked at enough different studios with enough different directors and actors who sometimes do direct, and, so they know me and I know them, or it's time. It's not like, I don't put myself up like, well, I'm the most talented guy out there or whatever else, but I've been around the block. I know how to do it. I'm reliable, and you get known. So it's like any business, if you could build up a resume and you're reliable and you get known and you show up on time and you do your job, whether you're hammering nails in a board or doing voiceover or whatever, dentist or whatever occupation, be on time, be professional, be polite, be cooperative, help everybody out, make people laugh, don't bring in your troubles. It's, all those things apply in all businesses, and they're no different in mine.
If you could do one, I know you're a voice actor and stuff, but if, maybe it's just directing, but if you could do one voice, or, you could direct one movie or play the one part, what's the one part you would want to do?
I would want to be Toshiro Mifune in every Kurosawa movie ever made. Sorry,
nice choice. Damn. Okay.
Yeah. Sorry. I was growing up, I was a little different than other kids. I watched cowboy movies. Mm-hmm. But I got into into Japanese films, and I'd go myself at 14 to Japanese film festivals, and I fell in love with the Japanese director Akira Kurosawa.
Oh, yeah.
If you've watched the big cowboy films like The Magnificent Seven and many cowboy films that were based on his samurai films. Mm-hmm. And some of his samurai stuff was influenced by Westerns because he watched Western movies. I'll pronounce it wrong probably. I apologize wherever he is. Toshiro Mifune was the star of many of his films. The original Clint Eastwood films were based on, The Man with No Name was based on Toshiro Mifune coming into town as a samurai all by himself, seeing warring samurais. Whatever. So I don't know why that just came to mind. But if I could have been any movie star growing up, I would have wanted to be Toshiro Mifune.
Man, that's a hell of a choice.
That's a good answer.
For real, that's a good one. Especially considering we have seen that movie played and replayed over and over again. Not just Clint Eastwood, but there was The Last Man Standing with Bruce Willis, the same concept. The Sword and Sorcerer with David Carradine was the same movie. Oh, yeah.
I looped on Last Man Standing, actually. I was one of the voices in that film.
Oh, but really?
That was based on Star Wars, in part, was based on a Kurosawa film. There's something Princess or something like that. I can't remember, Kingdom or whatever, but he was playing sort of a heroic romantic lead, a little bit different than he might usually do. And there were two comedic characters who were used as the robots. They were sort of based on Laurel and Hardy, the comedic characters, because Kurosawa watched Western films, and then they took them and made them those two characters in the Star Wars franchise. Amazing film. Go watch The Seven Samurai.
Yes.
Film. I still watch it. I have it stored on my computer, a few Kurosawa films. But every year or 2 years, I treat myself and I just watch it.
I'm going to go back to them.
I walk out a couple of hours and watch the whole thing.
Yeah, I hit a ninja fix. Every year or so, it'll hit me where I just start devouring anything I can with ninja movies. But it's got to be specific. Now, I mean, animes are fun, kids, you youngins, you Zoomers and whatnot. But no, when I like get into ninja fix, this old school stuff like Wrath of the Ninja, the Ninja Scroll, or I mean, because I ended up getting the special DVDs of it. But like Revenge of the Ninja, Enter the Ninja, American Ninja. So I know what you mean.
And they all go, a lot of them go back to, it's fun to go back to see where did that come from? Like a lot of anime, you can look and say, well, there, Lord of the Rings. They've taken a lot of mythology from well, where did Lord of the Rings take his mythology from? Because he specialized in it. So you can go back, and it can get very interesting what you can discover. And you might find a little corner of the world and you go, this is cool. I want to really expand and look into that. And you might be looking into something that your friends don't know about that you can introduce them to.
Right. That's like watching Conan when you're a kid and then discovering Robert Howard, and then you accidentally fall into the whole Lovecraft pool there, and then it's over.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of sort of. I mean, for me, the gateway was He-Man. But yeah, it was He-Man, and the fact that my mom let me watch Conan entirely too young. And I mean, there we go. Here I am now.
I wasn't going to go to any Conan films, but a buddy of mine who was he was so eclectic. He had introduced me to a lot of great music when we were just little kids. I was just listening to rock, and he introduced me to folk and blues and all this stuff. And he always had interest, and he got into making weapons like swords and knives, and he was really handy. And he said, Doug, I want to go see this Conan film with Schwarzenegger. I said, man, I don't want to see that.
Yeah,
that's not interesting to me. He said, oh, because apparently they've really done a great job of the weapons. Watch it with me. And, if you don't want to watch the story, watch what they're using. So I went with him and went, it's pretty entertaining. It moves along at a pretty good pace and, And it was interesting to see. He was right. It was fun to kind of see what they'd done with all the weapons, because they did try to honor some of the, and since I had watched samurai films and even had a book on samurai swords and stuff, I kind of was, a little bit into it too. So again, things can lead to funny places.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't expect them to lead.
Out of all your voices over the years, when you look back, is there one that is straining on the voice, one you dread doing that you would never want to do again?
Yeah, there's a couple that are, well, one thing about video games, I don't do much video game work anymore because of all the fighting. That will really put a strain on your voice. And as I get older, I have to say, like, your body muscles weaken, your vocal muscles will weaken too, even though I'm working and talking all the time, doing all those fight things. I cannot, a fight game stuff anymore. No interest. We had heard Frank Welker doing a voice when we were early on into all this. I'm trying to remember the name of the show. It'll come to me, or you guys may remember. And he was doing a monster voice on this show, and we all went, oh, we got to learn how to do that. That's money. So we learned how to speak like that. And I can still do it, and I can still retain it for a little while, but I don't want to. It's hard.
Yeah.
But Frank Welker's like unto a god. He can do a lot of different things. What was it called, that thing? The character had a bunch of different arms, and he was a detective.
Sounded like Inspector Gadget. It sounded like Dr. Claw.
Yeah. I think it was Dr. Claw from Inspector Gadget. He was doing something like that, I think. I think that's where we heard it.
Tell us about your cat shelter there. Did you start it yourself, or are you just a volunteer?
I had dealt with some health issues, including very severe arthritis, and was less physically active than I had been. And as I started to get a little bit improved about 10 years ago, I thought I'd like to do some volunteer work. And I'm not directing anymore, and I'm not running a loop group, and I'm not budgeting stuff. I'm just acting. It's like a vacation. I've got a little bit of extra time. So I knew I couldn't volunteer to shelter with dogs, because with the arthritis in my knees, they'd pull me right over if I had to go walk with them. And I like cats, and I had them. So I found a cat shelter. That's a no-kill cat shelter in L.A. It'll be 10 years ago in August. I started off volunteering. Then I became the non-paying volunteer coordinator for a while. We started in somebody's backyard. I sit on the board, and I do fundraising events, and I'm very involved in a more administrative capacity now. And we have our own building. We save hundreds of cats every year. We are consulted by different places around LA, because we're a trap, neuter, return specialists, etc. So we become kind of big deals for a small shelter. We have a staff, a paid staff, etc., etc. It's pretty cool stuff. And I now specialize in fundraisers. And being an actor, of course, both my fundraisers are actor based. In the fall, we do one that up until now has been called Voices for the Voiceless, where I get other voice actors to give me swag, signed autographs and all that stuff. And we auction it off online with all the profits going to Kitty Bungalow to help the animals. And again, we're a registered nonprofit. Nobody's making any money. Our staff's working for like minimum wage, bless their hearts, because they love animals. But, you know, we got to grease the wheels and keep this thing going. And the one that we just started during the pandemic, I'm just going to click on it here, is we've actually been in existence this month for 12 years. I joined 10 years ago, but it was around. So we're having our 12th anniversary show. It's an online comedy show. Since I used to do comedy, I know a lot of stand-ups and improvisers and stuff here in LA, because I was still doing stage work when I first got to LA, doing comedy work. And our headliners were very excited. It's going to be an online Zoom show. If people go to kittybungalow.org/celebrate, Kitty Bungalow, KITTY BUNGALOW, kittybungalow.org/celebrate. They'll see the site. And we've got Catherine Hahn, who's on a ton of TV shows. And we've got Kirsten Bangs-Ness, who's also been on a ton of TV shows. They're both great comedians, and they're going to be our headliners. I've got 4 stand-up comics, or is it 5 stand-up comics? My buddy Phil Ward, who I used to do stage with, is going to be doing a comedy song. And the great actress Carrie Walgren and I, my buddy and I wrote a sketch, which has got cats on camera from Kitty Bungalow, and me and Carrie doing their voices, doing all their voices. So you'll hear Joe Pesci and a few other people in there. So we've got a sketch we're doing, and it's all on April 23rd online, 7 p.m. our time, Pacific time. I'm not sure what time in whoever's watching zone, but you can look it up. Again, people can sign in. We're going to be teaching you how to make some great cocktails, so you can get a little soused while you're watching the show. The show will last an hour and a half approximately. You know, we're winging it. I'm doing it live. We have pre-recorded comedy bits that the comics have been nice enough to record for us. But Catherine Hahn might just show up at the shelter and be live. I don't know if she'll be interrupting me or what she'll be doing there. We don't know yet what she's up to. But I'll be live at the shelter hosting the show. We're going to go on from there. So it's a little bit, just playing it off as we go.
It's improv.
Pre-recorded. Yes, some of it will be improv, and some of it will have been pre-recorded. And every penny goes to Kitty Bungalow. If we can make enough money off the show, we get matching grant money. Last year we made $25,000.
Oh, wow.
Well, that's awesome.
The kitties, which is fantastic. And again, everything goes to saving. It's not only saving kitties. I don't want to go on too long. I know we're here about voiceover, but we also do neutering and fixing of the animals. So we're reducing the population humanely. We never euthanize a healthy animal. Never, never, never euthanize a healthy animal. What we do is reduce the population by getting cats off the street and making sure they can't keep having babies.
Right.
So even if we can't take them into the shelter and they're tough little Joe Pesci's that are never going to be adoptable, we put them back where we got them in their little cat colony. We have somebody in place to feed them, and they can live out their lives and get fed and be healthy. We'll give them a welfare check. They won't have more babies born out in the streets. So there won't be thousands of little kittens dying and starving and being eaten or hit by cars out in the streets. So it's a humane thing that we're doing to help the kitties in as gentle and a compassionate manner as possible.
And that's kittybungalow.org/celebrate. I'm on it right now. So yeah, the site's up. Go there.
Cool. We're the Kitty Bungalow Charm School for wayward cats.
Too cute.
So we're taking in the street cats who come in and going, don't even touch me. Don't even think about it. I'll rip your face off. And a couple of months later, they're going, you're a very nice person. Why don't you take me home? I would very much appreciate cat food. Only the finest, of course.
That's a cause we can certainly get behind. I'll make sure to put the link in the episode, and I'll have it out before that goes live.
I appreciate it. That'd be great.
Doug, just to wind down here, just to wrap up, do you have anything in the pipeline coming out voice-wise? Anything on the horizon?
Anything you got to promote or just that you're excited about?
Everything that I've got right now is under NDA, non-disclosure agreement stuff. I will tell you this.
What?
Got him.
Almost.
You tricked me. You are too clever for me, young man. I did not expect such a question, and I spilled the beans. I will tell you this, that in July, I just have to switch over to my email here. I've been invited to the AVOX Actors Voiceover Experience at the Pasadena Convention Center. And they're actually going to do it in cooperation with Kitty Bungalow. And we're going to have a cat room there. So I'll be at a table signing. Behind me somewhere will be a room with Kitty Bungalow staff and volunteers with adoptable kittens in it. So we get to combine the two, which is really cool.
Awesome.
That's going to be in July. I don't have a firm date on it yet. I just got notified about it, asked if I wanted to participate, and we're in the midst of talking to the organizers and getting all the sign-offs required with Pasadena for live animals to be at events and everything. You know, there's a certain hoops you have to jump through.
Yeah.
So we're jumping through the hoops, and we're going to get that going, and that'll be in July. And I'm negotiating with a couple of other conventions in August here in California, but I'm not signed up yet, but I hope to be able to participate in them. But I don't have anything I'm in the way of projects that I'm really heavily promoting right now. There's stuff that's still out there on the air that people can see, certainly.
Sounds like you got your paws full just with the cat thing going on. So
it's really a big part of, it's a big part of my focus. I'm really into it. It's very cool.
I wish you all the success, and I hope we actually get a lot of people to actually show up. Maybe we'll give you a nice little bump.
Yeah, that'd be nice. That'd be great. Just tell them Doug sent you, or say that your site sent me.
There you go.
I'd love to be able to get back to you and say, hey, 5 people showed up that said that they watched this interview.
Well, Doug, it's been a pleasure talking to you, man.
Yeah, thank you, man. Look, if you get something come up or whatever, hit us up. We'd love to chat more.
Cool. Send me a link when you're throwing this up in the air.
We'll do.
It'll
be in the next couple of weeks, and I'll keep you updated.
Sure. Cool.
All right, you have a good night, man.
All right, yeah, man. Take care.
Thanks. Take care.
Welcome to the night. You think you know Night Demon? Then the Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast is for you. Step into the darkness as we peel back the curtain to give you an unprecedented, all-access look into the mind and the heart of the demon. We're talking band history, song analysis, studio anecdotes, stories from the road. It's everything a diehard Night Demon fan could want and more. This is the only place to learn the inside scoop, the deep dive trivia, the untold tales from the band members themselves and those closest to the Night Demon story. Need more? The sacred Night Demon Crypt will be pried open to reveal demo recordings that have never before seen the light of day, all with in-depth commentary by the band and the people who were there for the writing and recording process. This is a gold mine, a treasure trove of all things Night Demon. Head over to nightdemon.net or wherever you listen to podcasts. Listen to podcasts.